Okay, this is our second video introducing polynomials, and in this video all I'm going to cover is identifying the degree of monomial and the degree of a polynomial. Both of these are important things to understand and know how to actually just look at and know exactly what the degree is. It determines essentially the behavior of the function itself and helps you figure out and make a plan of what to do with it. So let's get started. Let's talk about monomials. Monomials can be fairly simple. Could be simply x squared. Could just be a number. Or it could be a string of several variables, say 5 x squared y cubed. So what do we mean by degree? Well, we're talking about the power of the exponent. And we want to have a way of kind of measuring just how much exponential power each of these monomials have. In the case of this first example, we merely have to look at the degree of this exponent. X is squared, so the degree is 2. So we'll just make a list over here of degree, and in this case the degree is 2. This constant term doesn't have a variable part, so it doesn't have an exponent. If you put an exponent on the 3, you'd simply, take 3 to that exponent and you still have a number. So it's really the degree of these variable parts that you're concerned about. And you might say, well, there is none, and you'd be correct. You can, however, think of this as having an invisible x to the 0 power, because anything to the 0 power is 1, and of course 3 times 1 is still just 3. So you can imagine that that's there, and of course that would tell you immediately that your degree is 0, and it would also explain why we consider that to have a 0 degree. Finally, if there's more than one variable in the monomial, okay, then what you do is you add up, okay? And I realize this is kind of like breaking that rule of when you have powers with the same base and you're multiplying them, you simply add their exponents. But this isn't the case. These are different types of bases, and we're still just going to add them because we're calculating a different thing here. We're calculating the degree. We're not actually multiplying those two. So in this case, we'd say this has a degree of 5. Okay, that's all well and good. There may be questions on your test coming up, give you some monomials and ask you for the degree, and now you know how to find those. Now let's look at a polynomial. So with a polynomial, you simply look at the degree of each of the terms in the polynomial and you pick the largest one. Okay, so let's start off with maybe a complex example. Okay, just kind of made that up. So here we have 1, 2, we've got 3 terms in this polynomial. And so we're going to look at the degree of each monomial. We're going to use the skill we learned here, and we're going to say, okay, this one has a degree of 5. This one, I'm going to add the exponents, and it's going to be a degree of 6. This one, you got to remember that when you don't see an exponent, there's an invisible 1 there, and you have to remember to take that into account. So it's 3, 4. This also has a degree of 5. So we have 2 5th degree terms that are very different with their variable part. We also have a 6th degree. So the overall degree of this polynomial, we would say, was 6, because that's the highest degree. There you go. Okay. Outside of identifying degree and understanding the vocabulary of polynomials, you're probably not going to be working with multivariable polynomials in a high school setting. Most likely, you're going to see polynomials in the form that looks something a little more like this. You might see a 3x plus 1, or a 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. Or a 5x cubed minus something like that. Notice that these all in one variable. You might also notice that these are written in descending order of the degree of the term. So the term with the highest degree is always on the left. We'll talk a little bit about more when we wrap this video up. But in situations like this, where they're written in this form, you know the term with the highest degree is always on the left, then you can quickly evaluate these. And you can say this has a degree of 1. This one here has a degree of 2. This one here has a degree of 3. Okay? And that's one of the reasons why mathematicians always tend to write these terms in order of their degree. It just makes the polynomial easier to read and analyze when you know that the term that essentially carries the biggest weight, so to speak, that kind of drives the train on what this particular polynomial is doing, is always going to be the one with the highest degree. So if it's over there to the left, then that helps you evaluate this and make a decision on, what would the graph look like, and so on and so forth. So I think that's going to wrap it up for Intro to Polynomials 2. And we'll do one more where we talk about categorizing polynomials, and then we'll get on to operations.